When people discuss Paul McCartney after the Beatles, the conversation almost always becomes divided. Some critics argue that he lost his edge in the 1970s, drifting into lighter, more casual songwriting. Others believed he never lost his brilliance at all, but instead chose to hide his genius inside deceptively simple melodies. When you revisit Wings with that in mind, something fascinating emerges. Despite Paul's attempt to move forward and build a new identity, there were still moments where his songwriting felt unmistakably Beatles-like. After the Beatles ended, Paul didn't form Wings as a polished supergroup. Instead, he intentionally started from scratch. He wanted the band to grow organically, just like the Beatles had in Liverpool. The lineup included Linda McCartney, Denny Laine, and Denny Seiwell, and the early sessions reflected that raw, experimental approach. But when you've spent over a decade creating timeless music with John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, it's almost impossible to completely separate yourself from that creative chemistry. Even as Wings developed their own sound throughout the 1970s, there were flashes of familiar musical DNA. Certain harmonies, melodies, and moods felt like they could easily belong on Abbey Road, The White Album, or even Let It Be. In some cases, these songs even feel like they could have inspired a mid-70s Beatles reunion, capturing what the band might have sounded like as they matured into their 30s. Here are 5 Wings songs that feel like they could have lived on Beatles albums. Number 1. Let Me Roll It, 1973. Let Me Roll It stands out as one of the most fascinating examples of Paul channeling his past, but not in the way many might expect. Instead of leaning into his own melodic sweetness, Paul seems to step directly into the sonic world of John Lennon. The heavy use of tape echo on the vocals, the stripped-down blues structure, and the hypnotic groove all feel like a deliberate nod to Lennon's raw, primal solo work. What makes the track even more compelling is how natural it feels. This isn't parody or imitation. It feels like an extension of a musical conversation that never truly ended. During their Beatles years, Lennon and McCartney constantly borrowed from each other's instincts, shaping songs together in ways that blurred authorship. Let Me Roll It feels like that dynamic continuing in absentia. If this song had been brought into a late Beatles session, it's easy to imagine Lennon embracing its edge, perhaps pushing it even further into distortion and grit. Harrison could have layered in subtle slide guitar textures, adding emotional weight beneath the surface, while Starr's drumming would likely have tightened the groove into something even more hypnotic. The result could have sat comfortably alongside tracks from The White Album or Let It Be, capturing that balance between looseness and precision. Number 2. Wildlife, 1971. The title track, Wildlife, from the album Wildlife, reveals a different side of Paul McCartney's Beatles connection. Rather than focusing on structure or polish, the song leans into atmosphere and emotional build. It unfolds gradually, almost resisting the idea of a traditional pop hook, which mirrors some of the more experimental directions the Beatles explored in their later years. Paul's vocal performance is particularly striking here. It's unrefined, almost fragile at times, but that imperfection becomes the song's greatest strength. It echoes the kind of vulnerability heard in tracks like Don't Let Me Down, where emotion takes precedence over technical perfection. Lyrically, the song's focus on nature and compassion reflects the kind of simple yet profound themes that often defined Beatles songwriting. There's a sincerity in its message that feels unforced, allowing listeners to connect without overthinking. In a Beatles context, Wildlife could have evolved into something even more expansive. John might have sharpened its lyrical edge, Harrison could have deepened its spiritual undertones, and Starr would likely have approached the rhythm with restraint, giving the song space to breathe. It's not hard to imagine it taking shape during the band's rooftop-era sessions, where rawness and immediacy became part of the aesthetic. Number 3. Letting Go, 1975. By the time Letting Go arrived, Wings had developed a more polished and confident sound. Yet, beneath its slick production lies a track that feels surprisingly aligned with the Beatles' late-period experimentation. The groove is tight, almost funky, driven by a prominent bass line and accented by bold horn arrangements. What makes Letting Go particularly interesting is its sense of tension. There's a cool detachment in Paul's vocal delivery, contrasted by the warmth of the instrumentation. This push and pull is something the Beatles often explored, especially in songs where contrasting emotions were layered within the same arrangement. The horn section adds a soulful dimension that the Beatles only occasionally touched upon, but the way it's integrated here feels like a natural progression of ideas they had already begun exploring. If Harrison had been involved, he might have introduced subtle melodic counterpoints, weaving through the horns with understated guitar lines. Meanwhile, Lennon could have added a sharper vocal presence, perhaps transforming the track into a more confrontational piece, while Starr's rhythmic instincts would have grounded the song, ensuring that even its most complex moments remained accessible. In a Beatles album context, Letting Go could have served as a standout mid-album track, bridging the gap between experimentation and mainstream appeal. Number 4. Tomorrow, 1971. Tomorrow offers a quieter, more introspective connection to Paul McCartney's Beatles past. Its gentle melody and reflective tone immediately recall the emotional intimacy of yesterday, though it carries a more understated and almost hesitant quality. There's something beautifully incomplete about Tomorrow. It feels like a sketch rather than a fully realized statement, which is precisely what makes it so intriguing. Many Beatles songs achieved their final form through collaboration, with each member adding layers that transformed simple ideas into timeless recordings. In that sense, Tomorrow feels like an open invitation. Lennon's harmonies could have introduced subtle tension, Harrison's guitar might have added a haunting melodic line, and Starr's delicate percussion could have elevated the song's emotional depth without overpowering its fragility. Even in its existing form, Tomorrow might have blossomed into something far more expansive, proving that even the softest ideas can leave a lasting impact. Number 5. London Town, 1978. Closing the list is London Town, a track that feels like a spiritual continuation of Paul McCartney's gift for music storytelling. Much like Penny Lane, it paints a vivid picture of a place, capturing small details and turning them into something poetic. The melody is relaxed and inviting, carrying a sense of nostalgia that feels deeply rooted in Paul's Beatles-era sensibilities. There's a warmth to the arrangement, but also a subtle melancholy, as if the song is reflecting on a world that has already begun to change. What makes London Town particularly compelling is how it balances observation with emotion. It doesn't rely on dramatic statements, but instead builds its impact through atmosphere and detail. That approach was a hallmark of many Beatles songs, where everyday scenes became windows into something larger. If the other Beatles had contributed, the song might have taken on additional layers. Lennon could have introduced a sharper lyrical edge, Harrison might have infused it with deeper emotional resonance, and Starr would have grounded it with a rhythm that subtly guided the narrative forward. Even in its existing form, London Town serves as a reminder that Paul McCartney never truly left the Beatles' mindset behind. His ability to find beauty in ordinary moments remained intact, continuing to shape his songwriting long after the band's breakup. And maybe that's what makes Wings so fascinating. They never were meant to replace the Beatles. They were Paul McCartney's attempt to move forward. Yet, every so often, the echoes of the Beatles would appear again, hidden inside melodies, harmonies, and moods. These 5 songs don't just show what Wings became, they hint at an alternate history, a glimpse of what the Beatles might have sounded like if they had continued into the 1970s. And when you listen closely, you can almost hear John, George, and Ringo still somewhere in the background, shaping the sound in ways both familiar and new.